Welcome back to the New England Golf Radio Show. I don't know why you got the money playing on there, Chris, this morning.
I like this song.
Jakobsen, $1.2 million that he just took home last
That's money.
week. Put that in the bank, Freddie. I don't know if he wants to invest it or whatever, but you never know. I am JJ Truman.
Where's he from? He's Swedish, right?
Swedish, man. Swedish. Unbelievable short game, as I said. I don't know how that happens in Sweden, but it does. I guess it just does. He's taking that paycheck back. I don't know how that converts to euros either, but it happens.
It won't be too tough for him in England then, you know? I mean, it's not like he's that far away.
Yeah, I don't know. He's won a couple European Tour events, so we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I think top 25, that's my pick. I am JJ Truman. This is the New England Golf Radio Show. I got Chris Arkan behind the board playing the money. I like it. We are your source for everything golf New England, PGA Tour, European Tour, everything golf around here. We are your source for it. We have all that information for you. As I said earlier, follow us on Facebook at WGAM The Game and Twitter, WGAM The Game, and you can get updates on all sorts of stuff. We'll be dropping some stuff on there this morning, and we always drop our interviews and things on there, so things that we talk about on the show is on there, and you can get all that information. Second segment, Bubba Watson in France. Two things you don't usually associate, especially 4th of July weekend. You wouldn't think that he'd be over there playing in France, but he was over there, played in the French Open at the Le Golf National Golf Club, which is just outside of Paris. He shot back-to-back 74s, ended up missing the cut there. Apparently he went over there to experience a different culture, which, I don't know, it would seem like he would go over there to get a paycheck. Typically when U.S. guys go over there, they pick up a little appearance fee. Apparently Bubba did not pick up an appearance fee for playing in this tournament, which I think is strange.
That is strange.
However, it was the French Open, so I'm not sure that they're dishing out cash for people to show up. He wanted to experience a different culture. Can't take that away from him. Just something that you don't hear often. Golfers saying, you know what, I'm going to Dubai to experience a different culture, and you say, okay, but no, you're going over there to pick up a paycheck because you're getting because you're going on an appearance fee and you want to listen to this music. You know what I mean?
That's why he went.
Absolutely. So anyway, shoots back-to-back 74s, misses the cut, does the post-round interview, and complains about cameras and video being taken on every hole. So, or pictures and video, people with their camera phones out, taking pictures. Now, I just was at the Travelers. I thought it was a great thing that they allowed cameras, or they didn't allow cameras, they allowed phones in the event. I could tweet during the round. It was great. If you followed me on Twitter, you had a chance to get the updates straight from the course. Wasn't even on TV because I was there in the morning. I think that's a great thing. However, when people are taking pictures and video, it may be another thing. Bubba certainly didn't like it. His quote was, "I'm not saying it's bad, it's just something I'm not used to." So Bubba certainly taking a little bit of shot, maybe a little bit heated after he shot the back-to-back 74s.
Bubba don't like paparazzi.
No, that's not his thing. Tournament director David Prohm responded by saying, "I'm sure other players have been put off by it, but I haven't heard any complaints this week." So certainly the players are aware of it. I guess the European Tour culture, and I can't say because I haven't been to an event, this is just what it appears to be, that the culture on that tour is a little bit different. They allow phones. They allow people to take pictures in their backswing. Unlike here in the U.S., things are a little bit different. If you go to the Travelers, you can have your phone. If they see you out, if a marshal see you have your phone out at the hole, then you're going to get it taken away, or you're going to get yelled at. I didn't see any of that.
They call them marshals? I didn't know that.
Yeah, marshals of the hole. Yeah, that's their job.
We meet again, Marshall.
Yeah. So those guys will take that away from you. I just think that it's interesting to hear that they allow pictures and video to be taken on the European Tour. And the question is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, does it enhance the experience for the fans? Does it draw fans to the tournament? Or does it take away from the experience because the golfers are affected by it and they end up playing bad golf?
It definitely enhances the experience for the gallery, for the fans who are there, because everybody thinks that they're a sports photographer. You know what I mean? When they're
Absolutely.
at a game, everybody wants to be, everybody wants to do it. The problem here is, well, let's think about it. What's the problem for the golfers? If a flash goes off in their eyes or if they hear the click. Otherwise, they don't even know that anyone's taking their picture.
Right.
With your iPhone or your Droid or any camera phone, really, you can turn the click off.
Yeah.
If you're videotaping someone, they're not going to know you're doing it
Right.
unless you're saying, "Hey, buddy, look over here." You know?
Right.
So what's the problem?
Yeah,
Just turn the sound off.
And I would agree with you. I wouldn't see a problem. I think it's just the same thing as a ringer. If you know how to turn your ringer off, you can figure out how to turn your camera phone sound off.
Right.
So I'm not sure what Bubba was talking about. It seems like there's something a little bit different about it. Maybe fans were too close to him. He felt like the security wasn't as tight there. He was just uncomfortable in France. I don't know. Really weird comments by him. However, he backtracked a little bit this morning morning. He apologized for the comments on Twitter. If you follow Bubba on Twitter, which I do, he tweets quite often. Pretty good guy to follow on Twitter. If you're not in the Twitter world, you know golfers are all over Twitter. So get in there, follow people. He said, if I offended anyone, I apologize. Definitely wasn't my intention. I played bad, not the fans or the tournament's fault. I hit the shot. So good for Bubba. I'm not sure that's the medium I would have chose to apologize through Twitter. I probably would have done something else. I don't know, maybe a press release or done a quick interview and just sent it out. And Twitter seems really easy to type in an apology over Twitter as opposed to actually saying something in person or getting on TV and saying, hey, look, I made a mistake. I was just hot under the collar after I played a bad round.
He's been in Paris too long. That's the problem.
Right. He did go sightseeing there, and I guess is going to play the British, which I don't know how that translates to his game. He's not a guy that hits a lot of low shots. Right. He's got pictures of this up on his Twitter, so check him out. He's got some pictures of sightseeing, good stuff. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny to see him over there. A guy from the South, and certainly good for him for going over there. I support him. The next question is this a bad thing for the PGA Tour? Does Bubba Watson's actions affect other U.S. players? Will it impact them? Will they say, you know what, Bubba didn't like it over there, I'm not going over there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because what did he really not like? He didn't like them taking pictures. I mean, if that's the big problem, I don't think anyone else is. I mean, that's something that golfers have to deal with every day. I mean,
right.
It's not. I don't think that's gonna deter people from wanting to play in Europe.
And I agree. And I agree with you. I don't think it's gonna deter people from playing in Europe. I think certainly since he backtracked on the comments, guys are not going to put any stock into what he said. They're not going to take this as a major hit to the European Tour. I think it'll be what it is over there. And if Bubba, to be honest with you, and I'm sure PGA Tour pros will tell you this any day of the week, if you're thinking about people taking pictures of you, then you're not thinking about what you should be thinking about. Probably why you shot back-to-back 74s over there on a golf course that you would imagine he would just tear apart.
He didn't really even have to backtrack. All he said was, "It's not bad. It's just not something I'm used to." It's not like he grabbed a French flag and spit on it and threw it on the ground.
He had some other comments that saying this wasn't his game and he wasn't comfortable with the atmosphere at the tournament and sort of questioned the tournament's security. And I don't know what that means. I mean, when you go to a PGA Tour event, you can get pretty close to these guys. Yeah. They do have marshals there, as I said, roping it off, and all the fairways are roped in Europe too. So that's questionable. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe people were allowed in the clubhouse. I don't know. They let me into the clubhouse at the Travelers, so obviously there's a security issue on the PGA Tour as well because they let me hang around there. So there's no
it's
question.
Obviously not very good,
right? These guys are accessible on the PGA Tour to a higher level than some people maybe even think. And I can't imagine how that could be dumbed down unless people are walking up into the tee box and shaking their hand before they tee off. And I don't think that's happening over there. I'm sure that would make TV if you could walk up and shake Bubba's hand before he tees off on the first tee in the French Open. Regardless, just interesting to see a different person's perspective on going over there and playing. Like I said, I don't think it hurts the tour, the European Tour at all. I don't think it hurts Bubba. People will forget about this in about a week. It's just the news of the week, really, because there's not much else going on in the world of golf this week besides the AT&T National. But there is something that also caught the headlines this morning, which I thought was really interesting. Robert Garrigus is talking about drug use on the PGA Tour and on the Nationwide Tour. And
Cannonball coming.
Basically what he said was people have used drugs on the Nationwide Tour and on the PGA Tour. And the quote from the media this week, and this was an article that was published in Golf World, says, "Oh, yeah, there were plenty of guys on the Nationwide Tour who smoked marijuana in the middle of a round. We always talked about it. You could go in the Porta-John and take your drags." So Robert Garrigus is coming out and making comments about
it's a little harsh.
Bubba just getting weird. I mean, not Bubba. Robert Garrigus just getting weird on the Nationwide Tour in the Porta-Johns. I don't even know what a Porta-John is. I would assume. I would assume he means porta potty. So
Porta-John is the same thing.
Yeah, porta potty, right?
Yeah.
And so he's assuming the guys going in there and smoking a little bit, which I never even would have thought of. I mean, he was on the Nationwide Tour about 10 to 15 years ago, maybe a little bit different culture. However, this catches news and this catches wind, and we're talking about it here on the show today. People look at golfers and say, wow, these guys are getting high during their round and they're playing for millions of dollars. I don't think it happens now. I'm not sure, who and how they would get away with that with as many people are around. I mean,
that's why Bubba Watson doesn't want people taking his picture. He can't go get stoned.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is there, but I just...
So let's have a little bit of this. I get a big Bob Marley.
So I think Garrigus brings up an interesting point, though, about golfers using drugs. I don't think they use it on the course anymore. Robert Garris, and I should point this out, he's a guy that struggled with drug addiction, so it's nothing. Certainly, we're having a little bit of laugh about it, but for him, it's nothing to joke about. Drug addiction is a very serious thing, and we don't want to make light of that. He's got one PGA Tour win he won the Children's Miracle Classic, which is played at Disney in Florida, and he brings up an interesting point about golfers using drugs and what's the drug testing policy on the PGA Tour? Now, the PGA Tour has a drug testing policy. Well, I don't know what it is per se. I would assume that it only outlaws performance-enhancing drugs. I would assume recreational drugs like marijuana and cocaine and those sorts of drugs are not outlawed and they do not test for them. But the question is, should they? Other leagues have drug testing policies that include those substances. You see guys get busted all the time in the NFL. If they smoke a joint, they're going to get suspended. That's just what it is, and it's substance abuse, and they take it there. So is the PGA Tour a different entity in that sense? Should they just have performance-enhancing drug testing, or should they include those recreational drugs that some of these guys might dabble in? Hopefully not on the course anymore, since there's a little bit more involved, a little bit more money involved, as Chris played the song earlier, than there was back when Garrigus was on the Nationwide Tour.
It's that's a tricky one because if you take away all recreational everything, then you shouldn't be drinking, you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes, and not that a lot of people do, but John Daly and what's his name, big guy,
Angel Cabrera,
notorious.
Yeah, notorious. Well, he quit, but
he did quit, but I mean, let's be honest here. Like those recreational drugs don't really enhance your performance, but they do affect your performance. And there are guys out there who probably can play a little bit better when they got a couple drinks in them, or
sure,
smoked a joint in the porta potty or whatever. Maybe that makes them play a little bit better. It's not.
You never know.
They're not necessarily performance enhancers in the sense that they're not going to make them hit the ball any further or whatever. But it does affect the way that they are playing. And if it's working to their advantage, then yeah, maybe it should be banned. But if it's not. It's hard to say. It's a tricky question.
I would agree. I think it's really tricky.
It's a bad example for younger golfers.
Yeah, it sets a bad example, and it certainly doesn't provide the image that the PGA Tour is looking for.
Right.
They don't want all their guys. Although it's pretty well known that a lot of these guys smoke, or if they dip, then they dip. I'm sure golfers are typically looked at guys who might go out and have a few drinks as well, and that's okay. We're not judging anyone here. The thing is, can you outlaw it, and can you say, you know what, if you're going to smoke weed, then we're going to suspend you? Is it going to be that cut and dry on the PGA Tour? Now, the PGA Tour is notorious for being secret with these sort of things, so we'll never know. We'll never know what's really on that list of banned substances. If you look at the NFL's list of the banned substances, there's some ridiculous things on there. Caffeine is on that list. Okay,
Sudafed is on there.
Right, I have a Dunkin' Donuts coffee in front of me. I could be suspended from the NFL. Dunkin' Donuts, we're looking for sponsorship. I could be suspended from the NFL right now for drinking this if I were to get drug tested. So certainly an interesting dynamic that the PGA Tour people don't think about that being part of the PGA Tour. There was a rumor by several golf reporters that they were drug testing at the U.S. Open. So another interesting thing there, that they're testing for performance enhancers. I know a lot of people have talked about Tiger and performance enhancing drugs and saying that's why he's hurt or that's why he's so big and so strong now. There's been a lot of issues or a lot of talk, I guess, scuttlebutt is what you call it, people talking about performance enhancing drugs in the world of golf. And then this story comes out and sort of perpetuates that conversation with recreational drugs. So now you've got both of those things. And it'll be interesting to see how the PGA Tour addresses this. Do they come out and say, hey, you know what? Our guys are getting drug tested on a weekly basis, so we know that they're not smoking weed in the porta-johns at every tournament? Or do they say, you know what? We don't really care. We just want to test for performance-enhancing drugs. My guess is that they'll do nothing. Garrigus isn't going to get fined. I mean, he's talking about times that were 15 or 20 years ago. He was talking about it because they were asking about his addiction. So it was something that came up in sort of a random conversation that's been twisted a little bit by the media, but at the same time may warrant a reaction by the PGA Tour. So I think it's something we'll keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Do they come out and say, you know what, we're not going to stand for this, we're not going to allow you guys to do this? Or are they going to deal with it behind closed doors and say, you know what, we're going to test for it, and then you just get these miraculous withdrawals from tournaments like Anthony Kim in Las Vegas last year or earlier this year? It's just one of those things that you never know how they're going to handle it because of the way that they operate, unlike other leagues where the other leagues just say, hey, here's what it is, we want everybody to know, and we're going to suspend you if you do it, and we're going to make it public. And the PGA Tour just doesn't operate that way.
How would you handle it if you were in charge?
I would probably do it behind closed doors, given the PGA's reputation and how they actually handle things.
You would suspend people.
I wouldn't suspend people. No, I would test for performance enhancers. I would leave recreational stuff out of it, and I wouldn't make that public knowledge. I would tell the guys, hey, this isn't what we accept. If you get arrested for this, and some guys have been arrested on the Nationwide tour for using drugs, but you can't make it public. You have to keep that image, and that's what they're known for. So you have to want to try to keep your brand where it's at. And in saying that, deal with it behind closed door. Test for the performance enhancers, certainly. If guys are using those, I mean, if golfers start getting into that world, then things are going to be, I mean, they're changing dramatically, but add that with the technology that we have today, and things are going to be certainly changing how far these guys can hit the ball. But also, make sure that they're not doing it. However, I don't think it warrants suspension. You're probably not going to test for it. And how often does the PGA Tour test for drugs anyway? Who knows? Maybe once a year, maybe once a week. We don't even know. So depending on their policy, it just doesn't seem to make sense to test them for that.
When are they going to invent a drug that makes you putt better?
Yeah, I don't know when that one's coming out because there's a few guys out there that could certainly use that. Tiger might be in the market for one of those. I don't know. Maybe we call one of those big drug companies. They can start doing some research and development, and we see what happens. Get your focus up on the greens, help you read the greens better, help you just smoothly stroke that thing. I don't know. Chris, are you looking for one of those?
You're out of Pirates Cove at like 6 in the morning, just overdosing on the putting drug.
Just working on your game and just putting and getting weird and doing all sorts of things, hoping that your game steps up. And it's just interesting to think that golfers would even jump into that performance-enhancing drug world. But it's certainly a possibility. There's a lot of money on the line. Freddie Jacobson just won $1.2 million. I mean, hey, if you're going to get a paycheck, guys are certainly willing to take risks to do it. And that may be an avenue that they want to explore. So certainly pay attention to that. We'll see if it catches any more wind as we move forward here. You got the John Deere next week. Probably not a lot going on there, so maybe it'll get some talk there. Then the British Open, certainly I think it'll be in the background at that tournament, and certainly the major will take over the headlines there, and I don't think he'll be talking too much about drug use.
I'll be honest. I thought Tiger Woods was on steroids when he got real jacked, but now I don't anymore because when you're on steroids, you come back from injuries quickly, and he does not come back from injuries quickly at all anymore.
Right, well, and it depends on what kind of steroids you're on. It depends on what
true.
you use. If you got some HGH in your system, supposedly that's the stuff that'll help you heal from injury very, very quickly. I would be surprised to know that he didn't try to get in the market for some of that, given all the injuries he's got. However, being as hurt as long as he is, there's probably no way he's taking that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly wouldn't accuse him of that. I know Tiger is a freak about getting in the gym 2 or 3 hours a day and really getting after it. We've talked about it on this show a lot, and it's something I don't think he should be doing. I think it's something that's causing his injuries. So, you know, there's certainly points in everybody's career or in Tiger's career that everybody has looked at him and said, what is he doing? I mean, is that humanly possible to make yourself look like that? Because he is one jack dude. There's no question about that. So, I don't know. Tiger's name may be associated with some of those PEDs, and that may come up as a result of this story as well. That'll be something else to look out for. And I'm surprised, honestly, as I said, we'll talk about the AT&T a little bit more, that he hasn't been in the media very much. I haven't seen very many interviews. There's not a lot of people going after him. And, you know, I'd love to ask him what he thinks about the drug testing policy on the PGA Tour. And I think that he's a guy that would give you a straight answer on it. So certainly interesting stuff with the use of drugs throughout the world of the PGA Tour. Last thing I want to get to in this segment is talk about the U.S. Amateur Public Links. It was captured by Clemson's Corbin Mills, a young kid who's a really, really good player. I had a chance to watch some of it on the Golf Channel. It was great that the Golf Channel televised it. I thought thumbs up to them. Great job for televising that event. It's great to see amateurs on there. Get to see a lot of young college players play who are really, really good, and even some guys that are just amateurs that don't play for money that are really, really good players. So it's really interesting to see those guys. He beat UNLV's Derek Ernest. They played it at Bandon Dunes, and if you haven't seen Bandon Dunes or you don't know anything about Bandon Dunes, it's one of the only link-style golf courses in the U.S. Well, not one of the only. It's the most well-known, I'll say, link-style golf course in the U.S. It's out in Oregon, and you got to check that out. They have a bunch of courses up there, and the greens are, I don't know, speaking of putting, Chris, 40-foot greens, 60-foot greens, 100-foot greens, and link style to a tee. If you were to just turn on the TV and see the course, you'd say, that's in Europe. There's no way that's in the United States. So it's something really interesting, and I'm glad they play it there. It adds another element to the game. You know, American players are not used to playing on those type of courses. They talked about a lot of the guys' preparations. One of the guys even flew over to England. Obviously, he's a potential pro because he's got the money and the means to do that, but flew over to Europe and played a bunch of rounds over there and to work on his game and get himself ready for this tournament at Bandon Dunes. So really interesting to see that. And the question is, would you like to see more coverage of the amateur events on TV? Because I certainly would. I like to see. I love to see amateurs play. However, I don't know how much it appeals to the mass market. But would you like to see more of that on TV? I mean, is that something you'd watch, Chris? Something the public would watch? What do you think?
I
Why
think
are
the
they
public
not
would
on?
watch them if they were better advertised. First of all, they're amateurs, so we don't know exactly who they are. But if there was a little bit of backstory that
Sure.
if there was a little more mainstream, I guess, and because this is one of the few sports that really has a strong amateur, following and,
Right.
and very good amateur players who can put on a good show like this one. But I don't know. I think if they overdo it, people will get bored, or it'll either get boring or it'll be more interesting than the regular
Right.
PGA, and then no one will care about any of it because the quality's not quite as good.
Yeah, it's just all the same.
I don't know. I think they should definitely do a little bit more, but not too much.
Yeah, I would love to see a little bit more. I agree with you. A little bit more, but not too much. Too much would probably kill it. Throw some advertising behind it. Give it a little bit more publicity. That would certainly help it. And I think it's just interesting to see amateurs out there and just see how good they are. It would give college golf a big boost as well, because a lot of these guys are college golfers. These Corbin Mills from Clemson, the kid from Derek Ernest from UNLV, Peter Uihlein won it last year, a guy who plays at Oklahoma State. His dad is a Titleist guy. So guys that people know in the golf world. However, if you threw a little bit of money behind it, give it a little bit more coverage, people would start to gravitate to it. We're actually going to do that. I'm going to cover, Chris is going to cover, we're going to cover the New Hampshire Amateur July 11th through the 17th. It's at Nashville Country Club. So we're going to give the amateurs some love here in New Hampshire. That's certainly going to be interesting. Looking forward to going over there. From what I heard, is a great venue and going to be some great players over there. So that whole week, I'll be giving updates right here on WGAM. You can tune in, see where people are at. If you know some of the people playing in it, you get some updates on how they're playing, where they're at in their matches. I think it's 2 rounds of stroke play to start, and then they move into match play as the week progresses. But we'll be covering that here on WGAM all week. I'll be giving updates live from the course. Chris will probably give some updates on Saturday. We're not sure how we're going to work that out yet, but we'll certainly have that coverage for you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk AT&T, hosted by Tiger Woods, right outside of Philadelphia. Certainly some good things going on there. They actually bumped up the tee times today, but we're going to get into that. We'll break down what's going on there right here on WGM.
Cannonball! Cannonball coming.
To lock